a group of teenagers were celebrating their graduation. They were hiking out there, camping out along Kasachi, along a trail there. And around 10 o'clock, something starts growling and they start hearing something. And one person actually sees something standing on 2 feet, just really concerned, whatever this thing was on his property. My name is Eric Palacios. I'm from Austin, Texas here. I originally got into the subject just because of some unusual stuff that had been taking place in my area and just really kind of following the breadcrumb trail. And one thing led to another. And after about 2.5 years of researching my area, which is the Brushy Creek area of Central Texas, I put all my investigations into kind of like a folder and I just looked at it for a while and I was like, what am I going to end up doing with that? And eventually, I ended up using all that information to produce a documentary, which was really my first foray into Bigfoot. And that documentary was The Beast of Brushy Creek. And if anyone's interested in seeing that, it's on streaming platforms right now. And that, like I said, that was really my first introduction into the Bigfoot subject. I have a background in journalism, worked in public broadcasting for many years. So I'd always heard about some of the more interesting things that had been taking place in my area. For instance, not really a lot of people in the area know that in the 60s, they actually found an ancient Roman coin at the bottom of an Indian burial mound that was found just along the Brushy Creek here in my area. And they took it to the University of Texas, and the professor there at the time said it was the best example of a possible original deposit he'd ever seen before. And you kind of put that along with some of the other historical things, like they found at the time, I believe it was the oldest complete skeleton that had ever been found. It was along the Brushy Creek as well. That was in the 60s, I believe. And the one thing that you really can't avoid is the in the area we have the legend of the Hairy Man Road here, and that's a road that was part of the Chisholm Trail. Was part of the where they would drive cattle up from Texas all the way up to up north, and people on this road would often relay to other people that were going to be passing through or had passed through that area that they had been chased off of a certain road uh, by what they described a wild hairy man that was usually hanging from the trees. It's like a big canopy of trees that hang over that road. He was hanging over the trees and he would kind of torment the settlers passing through there. And that was all the way in the 1800s. Now, living in the area, we grew up with that, and that was kind of like our Sleepy Hollow legend. And I didn't really think much of it until I had my own experience in 2011. And 2011 was an interesting year in Texas because that was when we had one of the worst droughts. I think it was the second worst drought Texas ever had. And because of that, a lot of the areas of the Brushy Creek were exposed where they hadn't been before. And that gave us access. I lived right next to the Brushy Creek. My property, actually growing up as kids, it backed up to the Brushy Creek. And so we'd go out there fishing every summer, every spring. We'd go fishing, swimming in the creek. And this time in 2011, we were doing the same thing we'd done a million times before. We had a group of about six of us out there. And I guess the best way I could describe it is around dusk, we got bluff charged by something that was really large. It sounded like an elephant kind of going through the trees. And there was five of us in our 20s at the time, and we weren't, we were kind of macho guys at the time. Not a lot would have scared us, and we kind of cowered like little kids at that time. Um, so that's really kind of what got me interested into the whole subject. And more recently, I've been using my background in journalism to kind of do a little bit of digging, I guess, as to the subject and seeing if there's actually any hard data, anything that people might have missed along the way as far as researching goes, because I hadn't really heard of anyone doing things like FOIA requests, federal FOIA requests, sheriff's office FOIA requests. I hadn't heard about anybody doing that in the subject. And I had, like I said, my background in journalism, I'd done plenty of those before. So I just wondered if I could get some information doing that. And to my surprise, a couple of the FOIA requests that I had sent out pertaining to Bigfoot incidents that happened recently, uh, I was surprised at the information that I was getting back from some of these reports. I've gotten reports from the Bureau of Indian Affairs. I've gotten reports from the National Park Service. I've gotten, various sheriff's reports where it actually says, in the report, Bigfoot, the word Bigfoot is actually listed in those reports. And that's just really kind of culminated into what I've kind of focused my energy on and in my research on. And like I said, that's just kind of gathering the hard data and using that and putting that in my own database to just kind of help forward, move the ball forward, I guess, forward the subject and take it into a direction where I don't think many people have taken it before, or at least I haven't seen.
Hi, I'm Linda Eastburn of Linda Eastburn YouTube channel, and I have a new book out called Threshold to Encounters. It's about 40 years of research and experience with all of these wild cryptids that many of you I know have encountered yourself. You can find it on Amazon.com. So let's go back a little bit to this Brushy Creek film that you made. Did you actually
Sure.
go out and film on site where some of these reports had happened or some of the things that you suspected were going on out there at Brushy Creek?
Yeah, yeah. I was able to get down there at the Brushy Creek, and that was really one of my main goals was to get down there and kind of show people the area because it's a really interesting and unique area. The Brushy Creek is part of the Balcones Escarpment, which is an ancient faultway that travels from about San Antonio, south of where I am, all the way up to close to where Dallas is, which is it's a really big, area. You can actually see it from space, and it's just full of limestone caves, caverns, um, a lot of really, you know, desolate areas. You have creeks and in canyons, all this type of things, and that's all here in the Brushy Creek area. Very interesting place. Like I said earlier, it's been inhabited for at least 13,000 years. That's a skeleton they found along the Brushy Creek was about that old, and so yeah, I was able to get to certain areas of the Brushy Creek and while researching, I was making my research public, letting people know what I was doing. I was posting in like groups on Facebook and social media and things like that. And to my surprise, a lot of people were reaching out to me with their stories. And the craziest thing to me was how similar their stories were. People that had never met before, almost telling me the exact same story. And that story was kind of similar to my own, being chased out of the area by something they really couldn't describe. And yeah, it was surprising to me just how much stuff was happening behind the scenes that I hadn't heard about. And one of the things that really kind of tied me into the searching for records was that uh, here in 2017 there was just a it was just an uptick in activity for whatever reason. People were posting on social media, their encounter reports, even pictures. Allegedly, someone had posted a very clear video of a tall, skinny black subject walking along the Brushy Creek. And a lot of people saw that. And again, when I made my research public, people were saying, talk to this guy, talk to this guy. And multiple people, like I said, who had seen it and didn't know each other were telling me to reach out to the same person, which I thought that was really interesting. And allegedly, because of that video, and this is the fact, you can go look at, I have all the information. The an alphabet agency, I'll say, came out to the area, and I have the email. It's 100% real and legitimate. The head of the agency at the time in Texas, I have his name and everything. He sent an email to the chief of police in the area saying that he was offering a reward and any assistance they need in the capture or detainment of a Bigfoot in the area. And that's a fact. We have it written down. It's an email that he sent out. And now, when I look at that, I'm kind of like, some people were saying that it was a publicity stunt or something to that effect. But why would a federal agency get involved with a publicity stunt like that? And the fact that we know that email came from the head of that agency at the time, that's really strange. And I've never heard of an agency, government agency, especially this one, offering a fake reward, which to me was just, it was bananas. And to my surprise, it didn't get a lot of traction for whatever reason, maybe by design. It seemed like it was just really Even people in the area don't really know much about that. Or when I'm telling them from interviews, I'm interviewing people, I'll mention that. I'm like, what? That happened when? It's really interesting that it's been just kind of hidden away so easily. Yeah, really interesting stuff. But yeah, the Brushy Creek is really interesting place, and the Hairy Man Road runs right along the Brushy Creek, like I mentioned before. A lot of really strange activity taking place in that portion of the Brushy Creek. I know a researcher that I interviewed for one of my documentaries. He had taken me to that area, and he showed me a T-post that was bent like a banana. It was insane. And if anybody out there knows, putting a barbed wire fence up, those steel fence posts, they're not easy to bend. And allegedly, he had seen a trackway leading up to that post. He sees the post, it's bent like a banana, no tracks on the other side, which is, really odd and strange to me. And in the Beast of Brushy Creek documentary, I'm in that area walking around while there's some work going on, construction workers. And I have a camera on that they don't really know it's on. And I'm walking around talking to them. And I asked one of these guys, I said, hey, you guys were working on Harry Man Road. Have you heard anything creepy or scary or anything about this road? And he's like, no. And I start walking away, and he's like, well, he points to another guy and he goes, that guy over there, he said he saw a big shadow peeking behind a tree. I was like, okay, let me go see if I can talk to this guy. So I walk over there and I go talk to the guy. And yeah, he starts telling me that he saw this large shadow peeking from behind a tree. And he begins to tell me about all the caves that are off of that area. And I know there's a lot of caves off of Harryman Road, uh, a lot of undiscovered caves off of that road. And so he starts telling me about three caves. He told me about one that he had seen a deer come out of. It was so big that he said he witnessed a deer come out of that cave. I was like, that's crazy. And then another one that was like a pit. And he said another one that there was water flowing in and out of. And the only one I was able to find was the one that was a pit. And it was kind of scary because if you're walking along the Harryman Road and it's kind of dark, you'd walk right down into that pit. It's kind of freaky, but that's just the area here along the Brushy Creek. It's Swiss cheese with all the limestone. And in 2018, there was actually a cave in under one of the houses along Brushy Creek Road, and I believe it went to like 20 something chambers. They never found the end of it. It was it just kept going and going, and I believe they just sealed it up the best they could, and that was really the end of that. But there's just so many caves and caverns, and I believe it was like 1969, the University of Texas Spelunking Group came out to the area, and they surveyed Williamson County, and they said I believe they discovered about 300 caves in the area, and they estimated there could be about 3,000 caves in total, which is just like, that's just kind of, mind blowing. Um, but if there is anything here in the area, that'd be the, perfect place to hide. Um, in one of those caves along the heavily wooded and brush-filled Brushy Creek here. Yeah.
Did you ever research how Harryman Road got the name? I mean, we know that it probably has something to do with Bigfoot, but obviously at some point it was officially named Harryman Road.
Actually, yeah, I did. I did the research into the Hairy Man Road, how it got its name. And again, growing up in the area, we'd always heard the story about the settlers traveling through the area, encountering this hairy man. Uh, but doing the digging, I actually found a book in my local library here that was called Rich Little Poor Boy. And it was written by the local postmaster in the area. And he describes in there without a doubt how the Hairy Man Road got its name. And he even says in the book, there's a lot of stories about Harry Man Road and how it got its name. I'm going to tell you how it really got its name. And so apparently in 1966, a group of boys were hanging out there on Harry Man Road and, just hanging out there around midnight. And as they're leaving, one of them is stranded out there. Shorty Caldwell. We have all the names of the guys that were there. Shorty Caldwell was actually the star football quarterback for the local high school in the area. And so Shorty's stranded out there, and he has to walk back to town, pitch black. He starts walking, and as he's walking out of the brush comes a giant hairy man. and he allegedly is chased all the way back to town. And he gets to school the next day, starts talking about it, and it catches like wildfire. And the story is told because a a person who was opening a shop off of Harryman Road, um, past Harryman Road, he wanted to get some stationery done. So he goes into the local postmaster, the one who wrote the book, goes to the local postmaster's area, and he says, "Hey, I'm looking to get some stationery for my shop. I live off of this road. What is that called?" And he begins to tell him, he says, "Well, it doesn't have an official name, but all the kids call it Harryman Road." And the guy's like, I believe the name is Carroll something, Mr. Carroll. And he says, "Oh, wow, that's great. I love it." And he goes, "You can put that on my stationery." And the author of the book says, "Well, we can't name streets or whatever. You got to go to town hall and get this approved or whatever." So he goes down there and comes back and he says, "Yeah, they said go with it." And so after that, it was named Harryman Road, but it wasn't without some controversy because Harryman Road is surrounded by ranches, private ranches that have been government owned. Not so much now, but at the time, uh, owned for generations, a very long time. Giant ranches, hundreds of acres, caves everywhere. And a lot of the old timers in the area did not want that road to be called Harryman Road. And they fought tooth and nail not to have it named Harryman Road. And one of them, who a middle school is named after, he actually went so far as to say, "You cannot name it Harryman Road. You're stepping on hollowed ground." And that was just like reading that in the book. I'm like, what the heck is he talking about? That's just really strange. And if you want to go back a little bit further, we could even go back to the original inhabitants of the area, which was the Tonkawa tribe, the Native American Tonkawa tribe, which was a really fascinating tribe in the area that to this day, we still really don't know much about them. Um, we know that they had some really interesting and weird traditions. They covered themselves in full body tattoos, kind of like a Maori or Islander. Uh, they they prayed to a giant wolf god that was their god because they believed in hunting, and they didn't want to become farmers or anything like that. They always wanted to hunt and be like the wolf. So they worshiped this wolf deity, and they would perform a ceremony every year that lasted about 3 days with them dancing around in wolf pelts along the Brushy Creek. And just a really odd and strange tribe. I believe they buried their dead feet first, like standing up. And I know this because I mentioned I lived my property backed up to the Brushy Creek. And in 2014, they were building a road that passed right behind our childhood home. And they dug up three ancient Native American bodies that were, I believe, buried in this way. And it's really unfortunate because in Texas, we have a law that allows the construction companies to hire their own archaeologists. And a lot of times they'll hire archaeologists that are kind of in favor of their construction or whatever. And so they'll just be like, "Oh, nothing to see here. You're good to go." So we really don't have any further information on these bodies that were discovered. We just know that they were ancient and there was three of them. That's really all we know. I tried doing a FOIA on that, and the last I heard was that I believe Texas State University has those remains somewhere. But yeah.
Have you done any
Mhm.
homework or research on the tribe itself that used to inhabit that area?
Yeah, so unfortunately, the tribe was kind of forced out of the area. There was a lot of rumors and things like they were cannibals. That's not really been proven. There was just a lot of derogatory things for the settlers to kind of just take over, kind of just put them in a bad light. So they're like they don't feel bad for taking over the land. Oh, they were just cannibals and stuff. Uh, and unfortunately, they were moved out, and now they reside in Oklahoma. The Tonkawa tribe now resides in Oklahoma. But I hadn't heard. I know there's a lot of activity now where that tribe is in Oklahoma. I hadn't really been able to. I reached out to the tribe there, and I hadn't been able to get much contact back from them. Haven't heard much as far as like if they ever encountered anything. as far as Bigfoot related to hairy man themselves, other than the giant wolf deity. But one of the things that I do find very interesting, and it was in a book that I read about the area, it's called Takachue Puetsu, uh, the land of good water, translates to the land of good water. That's what the natives call this area, the land of good water. It's like a paradise for them. And what I did find that was kind of interesting and tied into the Bigfoot subject is they actually use tree markers. They would bend trees in certain ways to signify where water was or where their certain tribes were. They would bend trees, and I thought that was really interesting because we hear a lot in the subject about like, tree bends and tree twists and breaks and all that stuff. Another one is they would tie a feather or like they would stick a feather to a tree. There were some other ones that I don't remember, but they would use tree signals, which I thought that was really fascinating and interesting. Yeah, that's kind of as close as I could get it to the Bigfoot subjects from
Sure.
what I could see. Yeah.
So you did quite a bit of research from these reports that you could find from the sheriff's offices and things like that. Now, those just kind of fascinate me. Can you go over some of
Sure.
these and some of the detail that you discovered within those reports?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, to my surprise, I was just fascinated with how many reports have gone to law enforcement, local or federal, and they have just kind of no one has ever discovered them. Like if I could show you here real quick, I have this report. It's probably my favorite report. This is the actual Xerox of the folder. This is the report I submitted a FOIA request to the Bureau of Indian Affairs. I don't think anyone had ever done that before. And I wanted to know, I had heard some things and information that I had gathered. And so I sent them a FOIA request, and it was partially accepted, partially denied. Um, they denied a lot of, they told me how many things they denied. I think it was over like 200 or something documents they denied me, but they sent me this. And I think to me, this is the best native account since possibly like the Chapman account that took, or Ruby Creek account that took place in it's like the 40s, I believe, or something like that. This is just really interesting. And if you want, I can actually read you a little bit of this. This was in June 25th, 1978. And this was on the Mescalero Reservation. And we always hear about the relationship of the natives with Sasquatch and things like that. And like I said, this to me is just, it was really incredible. What had happened was uh, a woman, I'll read this here, actually. This sounds better than me reading it. Narrative of information received. Called and requested an officer to redact. She advised he had seen an animal or Bigfoot by her residence. Needs someone to check it out. This is a federal document here. I mean, it has Bigfoot right in there. That to me, that's just it's kind of mind blowing. So the reason they went out there in the first place is because she believed she saw an animal Bigfoot. It's written right in the report. To me, that's just it's mind blowing. See investigation report. So this is the federal agent's report of going out to the property and looking at what this woman had said. And I have the report from the officer right here. And it says, I'll read it to you. Subject, animal or Bigfoot seen at redacted residence. I checked the area where this animal was seen. I had officer redacted and redacted, conservation officer redacted with me, and officer redacted. Officer redacted and myself walked up to where this animal was seen. The conservation officers drove up to the green water tank located above Galtiero Flats. After checking the area, the only thing found were tracks belonging to a bear. We'll say bear. Officer Redacted said he would put a bear trap in that area. Officer Redacted also advised that due to dry weather, it was causing the animals to come down from the mountain looking for water or food. The persons who saw that animal were redacted and redacted. Both persons said the animal they saw was standing up with its hands in the air. Both subjects were frightened. They then began telling me what they heard that they began telling me that they heard Bigfoot was seen at Head Springs. And what they saw, they were sure was a Bigfoot. I advised them we would go up there and see what it was. I mean, this is a This is a heavily redacted document, but just from that, we know that the federal agencies have an interest in the subject. That's a fact. And they've had an interest for a really long time, and I'll go over that here in a little bit. But again, to me, that was just fascinating because that document has never seen the light of day since 1978 when that came out, and I was really lucky that I was able to get that information. And again, I'm just using this to try and build a database of hard data, more reputable reports. And I mean, the fact that not only the we have a couple of federal officers, federal Bureau Indian officers going up there, but we have conservation officers going up there too. That's really interesting to me. Conservation officers, why would they need to be there? Are they trying to protect this area for certain things? It's really interesting to me. And the fact that they said it was a bear kind of kind of fits the bill, I think. If you've been researching, you kind of know what I'm talking about. But yeah, that's just one of several that I've got. I can talk about another one that I had here. It's from the National Park Service, and you hear a lot of stuff from the a lot of information from the National Park Service about Bigfoot sightings taking place and whether or not they're being covered up. I got this report here after doing a Freedom of Information Act request. Digging on their website, I had seen a incident summary report that had mentioned something about Bigfoot, and so luckily it had a incident report number, and with that number, I was able to write a detailed FOIA request. I sent that in, and a few months later, I got this report here, which to me, it's one of the more interesting reports because right at the top, it says, this incident contains information that has not been approved by a supervisor. I've gotten a lot of these reports before. I've never had one that said that. And you'll kind of see why when I start reading along here. This report took place in Colorado at the Dinosaur State Park there along Yampa Bench Road. And I'll read, this was in December of 2020, so not that long ago. And I'll just read you a little bit of the summary here. Summary, suspicious circumstances. Bigfoot hunters flocking to Yampa Bench Road report bone piles near road and Bigfoot sighting near Cleopatra's Couch. Bone piles may be related to poaching, possible OB camping along Bench Road. Unprepared visitors visiting area in winter may result in increased risk of search and rescue. And it's just 2 pages. There's nothing else. Everything is redacted on this. This is the first, and from what I understand, the only Bigfoot report ever released from the National Park Service. There's never been a Bigfoot report released from the National Park Service before. This is the only one, and it's lacking, very lacking information here. And the information we do have, I mean, the officer's name should not be redacted, the badge number, none of that stuff. We should have that information. And the fact we don't gets really weird. And I have it somewhere here, but I'll tell you why we don't have that is because I got in the email I got back from the Parks Department said that they were partially approving, partially denying. And what had happened was, I keep saying this, it was the call came in, or we're not even aware of what happened. We don't know if this was a phone call made. We don't know if this was an email. We don't know if this was someone stopping by the ranger station saying, "Hey, we saw Bigfoot." We have no idea how this report came into the ranger station. We don't know that. But what we do know from my email is that it says it verbatim. I wish I had that paper. It says this incident was not followed up on from the ranger because the ranger was medically incapacitated to check out what was going on in that area. And I was like, that's bizarre. Why medically incapacitated? That's insane. Well, I don't get that. And the reason they say medically incapacitated was because that falls under a HIPAA exemption. HIPAA's medical and that stuff, it's private. You can't get that information even through a FOIA request. So that was very tricky of them to say that. So because they said it was a FOIA, they don't have to disclose anything further with this report here that happened, which is really kind of devastating because it's the only report from the National Park Service actually has Bigfoot in the wording there, and it was not followed up on. It was not investigated on by the ranger because they were medically incapacitated. Now, when you think of ranger, I kind of think of somebody that's physically fit, ready to go out and, do their duties, help people or whatever. Uh, and that didn't happen. That did not happen for whatever reason. And when I first did a video on this and put that out there, people were telling me that maybe he was this person was too scared to go out there. Maybe that's what medically incapacitated them. Maybe it was them that had the sighting. That's why there's no call. There's no, call was made or person report. There's none of that. So, I mean, could it be they had the encounter and they're reporting it? It's really strange and weird that we don't have the follow up there. It's bizarre that we don't have any more information on that. Um, and I've never seen that before. Again, with all the research I've done, the FOIA requests and things like that, really odd. Can't explain it.
Well, that's interesting. No, in the 400 and some interviews I've done, I've never had anyone tell me about, federal documents that actually have some form of a Bigfoot acknowledgement, even, or any kind of a report whatsoever. So, did you run into any more of these?
Actually, I did. Yeah, I actually grabbed it for you real quick. I have here this is a sheriff's document. I got this one a couple weeks back. And that was from a sighting that took place last year in the Kisatchie National Forest in Louisiana. And that actually made national news. It was on the New York Post, a couple of other websites. A group of teenagers were celebrating their graduation. They were hiking out there, camping out along Kisatchie, along a trail there. And around about 10 o'clock, something starts growling and they start hearing something. And one person actually sees something standing on 2 feet and they call 911. And I have that 911 call. It's on my YouTube channel if you want to hear it. They call 911 and they pretty much describe what's happening to them. They are too afraid to leave the park. They say this on the call. They say, "We cannot leave. We're too afraid to leave." This is a national park. The rangers need to be involved with this, or not necessarily rangers, but Park Service needs to be involved with this, whoever that is. And everything I have, I even did a FOIA request to the National Park Service. They say we have no information on this. And I'm like, it happened in a national park. There's a 911 call. How did you not get involved with that? It's really crazy. But yeah, I have the call and all that stuff. And it's really, yeah, like I said, it's really odd because everything I have is from the sheriffs in the area that border that park. It's not from the National Park Service, which it should be. They should have some form of, documentation saying that these kids had to be escorted out by a sheriff, but they don't. They have no information on that. So to me, it's like that's the second time I've had a federal document saying that they did not go investigate for whatever reason. And it's just like, what is going on? Is this like protocol? Are they just like, are they being told not to follow up on these type of calls or, weird stuff like that? And once you hear like the HIPAA exemption thing, that kind of leads to, something fishy might be going on here. Um, but yeah, it was weird that I got the report. I had to FOIA the sheriff's office in the area there in Louisiana. And it states that they had to be escorted out because yeah, there was something bipedal on 2 feet. I'm going to make a video about the documents here coming up, but they did get escorted out. It was something growling at them. There was like seven of these kids, and I have the name of the guy who made the call. I have all the information. I'm trying to get him in for an interview, but hopefully we haven't been able to schedule that, but hopefully I'll be able to get that soon. He was very scared and he was shooken, and he said it was kind of embarrassing that he had to make that call because it's like you're out there with a group of friends and yeah, you're having to call the cops to get escorted out because of a possible, something unexplained out there. It was really, really odd and strange. But when it comes to federal stuff, really the only report that I've seen where they actually did some investigation was the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and that might have an asterisk because it's kind of it happened on a Indian reservation. So that really wasn't federal land per se. It was, autonomous. It was like an autonomous zone. But they went out there and they checked that out. But they didn't go in Colorado, Dinosaur Park, check that out. They didn't go in Kisatchie to check that out. And I have documentation saying they didn't put the effort in for that. So it's really odd and strange. And I'm just gonna another FOIA that I did. It's not federal, but it's local for here in Texas. Was in 2019. There was a spree of sightings taking place. Three 911 calls had been made in one day, all mentioning an escaped monkey or ape. And that's a fact. That was in 2019, which is really strange. I did the FOIA to get that information. I have the reports. I have all three of the reports here. These are the reports. And it's weird because it evolves. It evolves from a possible monkey sighting, animal control problem. It evolves all the way to uh, primate, ape, suspicious person. That's what it evolves to. So it was really odd. And when I did the FOIA, I got the reports, but I really wanted the 911 calls because I wanted to hear if they were describing what they were seeing, so forth. And that actually got kicked all the way up to the Attorney General of Texas. And you're thinking, why would monkey, Bigfoot's ape on the loose sighting get kicked all the way up to the Attorney General? It's crazy. Um, but that one it's really interesting, and I haven't heard back from them. The deadline is kind of coming to an end on that, so I should be hearing back. And hopefully I will have those 911 calls because two people out of those three reports did have a visible sighting of something they saw and was standing on 2 feet covered in hair. So it'll be very interesting. Unfortunately, the reports did not have the transcript of the calls. So getting those calls is kind of, you know, it would be a really awesome thing if I'd be able to get those. And I know I said that there was three calls. There could have actually been four calls because one of the reports actually references a neighboring county saying, "Hey, we also had a 911 call about that same ape on the loose or whatever you guys are having." So there was communication between two different counties involving that. And that was in 2019. In 2023, I have a 911 call that someone called the Harrison County Sheriff's Office in East Texas saying that they had Bigfoot on a trail camera. And that 911 call is on my YouTube channel. Um,
Do
FOIA
you,
requested
do you
it.
recall
Go
what,
ahead.
what was on that 911 call?
Absolutely, yeah. FOIA requested it, got the report, got the call, and pretty much the guy is saying, "Hey, I don't want anybody to be alarmed, but I'm out here at my property. I think I might have Bigfoot on my trail camera." And it was really unfortunate because the operators, well, after they hung up with him, they said, "Oh, we'll get somebody out there." They hung up, started laughing. This is on the call. You can hear them laughing and stuff. It's terrible. They actually called I believe it was like the game warden in the area, and I have that call. It's on there too, and they're pretty much explaining to him, what's going on, and he doesn't laugh. He kind of takes it seriously, but they're laughing. They call him back, and he's saying, they're saying, "Well, we're going to come out there and look at it," and they did. They went out there and they looked at it. There was no body cam. I wish they would have had body cam with that. That would have been interesting. I spoke to the witness, the guy who made the call. Really nice man. He was just really concerned whatever this thing was on his property. He wasn't sure, and he had said that he had heard about a sighting that had happened like a year before that, east of where he was. So he did have some concern on to what this thing was, and I was able to get with the phone call and the reports. I was able to get the photo, and that photo is there on my YouTube channel, and it's an ambiguous photo. It's an interesting photo, but yeah, it's really unfortunate that they did not take that call seriously. And I can see why more people don't call 911 or they don't call their emergency services because of things like that. And at first I was wondering like what if people are having all these sightings, why aren't they making, phone calls and stuff? Kind of snobby. But after doing the research, I've seen that yeah, there is and maybe that's by design. Maybe the ridicule is by design, just to kind of disengage people as to like, oh, do you really want to report this? And obviously the federal agencies they're not even following up on that. It's so it's all really strange when you look at it like that. Could that be by design? That could be.
It could be, yeah. I mean, I think we're probably very programmed to believe that this thing doesn't exist out there, and so even when you hear about it, people do tend to make fun of it because they don't believe it exists. But
Right.
like you have a wealth of information there talking about people who have actually had some kind of an encounter with something that can't explain or don't know what it is, but it sure sounds a lot like what we would refer to as Bigfoot.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's the fact that there's multiple agencies hoarding information like this, like the Bureau of Indian Affairs, that would have never seen the light of day if someone wouldn't have done the FOIA request. And to me, I think that Bigfoot report, the Bureau one, to me, that's top five accounts ever in the subject, honestly. And I'm not trying to, whatever. It's just amazing. It's a federal document. Multiple federal employees were there investigating. You have two witnesses that say, no, we saw a Bigfoot. We know what we saw. It was a Bigfoot. Had its hands in the air. It was coming right at us. We know what we saw. It was 7 in the afternoon. It was 7 p.m. Summer. The sun was still up. They know what they saw. But in the document, it says, no, it was a bear. There's bear tracks. No photos. Why didn't they take photos of it if they were bear tracks? That to me, that was interesting. Um,
Yeah.
and do yeah, yeah, no, go ahead.
No, it is interesting that they didn't have any evidence of the bear if it was indeed a bear. And
Right.
sometimes these can be misidentified, of course, and the first thing that they always talk about is a Bigfoot. People have seen this thing up close, however, it seems that there's quite a bit of difference between a bear and a Bigfoot.
Absolutely. Yeah. And these are native people that have lived in that area for a really long time. And uh, I mean, it's just, yeah, it's kind of insulting when they say they know what they saw and the federal agents come out there and they're like, nope, you saw a bear and we're going to put a bear track out here. It's bear trap out here. It's really weird. Um, But doing the digging again, you kind of see that it's really weird how some of these agencies handle some of this stuff. And I'll tell you right now, I did a FOIA request to the Florida Parks and Wildlife Department, seeing if they had any information. They didn't have any skunk ape reports or documents or anything like that. They had zero of that. But they had over 15,000 Bigfoot emails that they have on file. And it's like, why did they have 15,000 Bigfoot emails? What's going on there? Or documents. That's really weird. And so I did the FOIA and I asked them, I'm like, hey, well, I want these documents. And they pretty much said, like, well, it's going to be a crazy amount of money. You can't afford it. Like, they didn't even give me a number. They just said it's going to be a crazy amount of money. And I was like, okay, well, how much would, like, 1,500 be or whatever? And they were like, oh, that'll be 5,000. I was like, oh my God. So I kept bumping it down. That'll be 3,000, whatever. And so I finally settled with him on like 200 emails at like, it was like $50, I think. And so I've gotten those emails and they are very interesting. In one of the emails, it's got like a picture of a giant hog that had been killed in the area. And it's an email between employees there at the Parks and Wildlife. And one of them says, wow, with these and Bigfoot in the area, no wonder people go missing or something to that effect. That's an email, an internal email. That's to me, that was just crazy. We have another email in there where they are discussing a photo. It says Chapara photos, and multiple employees are giving their opinion on what this photo is. And one of them says, "Oh, that's a guy in like a ghillie suit." One of them said that's like a child, and then one of them says that's a Bigfoot. Like that's another email that's part of that thread. Unfortunately, the photo was not part of that thread. I'm gonna have to do a separate FOIA request to get that. But it was really interesting, and probably the most unique one that I had seen was an employee telling a supervisor, hey, I went out at 11 p.m. to the field to check the Bigfoot track I cast. It's not dry yet. I think I used the wrong plaster. I'm sorry. I'll mix another whatever, whatever, and I'll check tomorrow. It's like, wow, to me, that's wild. An employee saying that to a supervisor in an internal email. And the fact that this guy is going out at 11 p.m. in a swamp, like it was for a park out there, a reserve. And he's saying that's just, you're going out at 11 p.m., gators and snakes and all that stuff. That was wild to me. I cannot explain that. Um, and that's kind of what I'm working to get these emails periodically as I have the funds for. I'm going to try to keep doing more of these emails, and hopefully I'll be able to get more answers because if the Florida Parks alone has over 15,000 of these emails, and just it's just really bizarre and wild stuff.
How do you decide what states to target as far as getting these reports and emails and such? How do you determine that?
Normally, I'll have like some breadcrumbs that I'll go after. Like I've heard something in the news, or I've heard a report, or someone will reach out to me with, hey, this happened here, whatever. You want to take a look at that? And with that, I'll try and craft a FOIA request, and sometimes it'll get denied, sometimes it'll get approved. Um, but again, with them, with FOIAs, they're kind of weird. It's like if you change one or two words, or you change, certain sentences around, maybe you'll get approved, maybe you'll get denied. It's really interesting. I have seen that where you just change a couple of things around, and boom, you get approved before. But yeah, any type of information that could, dates, names, locations, anything like that. It always helps when you're submitting a FOIA request, because a lot of the times if you don't have that information, they'll be like, this is way too broad. They'll send it back saying that, and you'll just have to narrow it down and keep narrowing it down. And yeah, it's kind of an art, I guess, crafting a FOIA request when you have very little information. But that's kind of how it was. Well, I did get lucky on the national parks one because it had the incident. It had a very small incident, like 3 or 4 words, and then it had the incident summary report there. It had this report there. So with that, I found it and did the FOIA request. Um, yeah, it's a lot of the FOIA request is one part, but doing the digging, the actual research, digging into old databases, and when I mean databases, I'm talking about like law enforcement databases, government databases, things of that effect. You do the digging in there, maybe you'll find a breadcrumb here, or like uh, a strange report or a strange news article from a certain time, and you can help use that to pinpoint certain things. Like the Kasatchi National Forest one, I believe I had seen that in a Facebook group. Actually, the sheriffs reported on that. The sheriffs of that county had reported that, and I don't believe they had an incident report number, but it was so close to when it had happened to when I had seen that report. I think it was like a day apart that I had the date and all the information. So I submitted it, and I got lucky with that. They were able to give me that information. But yeah, I guess I'm a maybe a proven armchair researcher because I've been able to get the documents here. And I guess a lot of people are kind of, maybe, I don't know, maybe they take armchair researching as a derogatory term or anything like that, but it doesn't offend me at all. So I'm getting
There's
results doing
Yeah,
this. Yeah.
there's a lot of information out there. You could say that about the same for me, even though I have also made a film, and it was it was boots on the
Oh,
ground kind of
cool. Yeah.
film. But nonetheless, it was all the interviews that I've done. I've just learned so much from the people who've had these experiences, and including yourself, um, being able to get so much information and reports, and to know that there are actual documents out there reporting these things. It's not just the Bigfoot sites that are taking the reports. There are actual documents at sheriff's offices and federal documents and national parks, possibly, that have further information on this. Now, once again, I know a lot of people are going to want to see your film and want to see all of this evidence that have brought together. So where can they go?
Yeah, they can go to my YouTube channel. It's Media Palace. I have all the phone calls. I do videos and some of these reports. If you want to see the reports, download the reports, put them for your collection, your database, you can check my Patreon. That's Patreon Media Palace. I have all the documentation. I have more documents than I've shown here. I've got a lot of them. So please feel free to go there and download them and share them out, and get people to get in, see these things, because there's real documentation from several agencies showing that not only have they been involved, with researching, but they're they have they're I don't want to say hiding, but they're hoarding the data from you. But it's there. It's there. And there's a lot of it. Every year it happens. Every year we're getting reports. Last year we had the Kasachi one. Who knows we're going to get this year? So I'm going to be doing a lot of. I've already got a lot of FOIA requests out and just waiting to get some of these emails back and just keep updating that my Patreon and my YouTube with new reports and see what we get. Yeah.
That's great. And I'll get back in touch with you because a year from now, I bet you're going to have a whole lot more information and we'll just do another interview.
Yeah. Well, can I finish up with this little bit here real quick?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, cool. Well, we talked about documents and being involved and everything, and people have wondered, does the government know about what's going on? And I'm working on a project now that it's going to absolutely show 100% without a doubt that not only has the government known about this, but they have been involved in the search since 1969, and there's documentation to prove that. That's a fact. That's factual. There was an expedition carried out that was government funded, and there was 100% documentation for that. There was a journal that was sent to the White House. There's just that's going to be coming out here once I get these projects get these projects out, and I think people are going to find it very interesting, and it's going to maybe bring people into the subject, and other people are going to be not so happy about it. But I mean, the documentation is there 100% to show that the government has been involved since 1969 in the search for whatever this creature is.
Sounds good. I look forward to hearing it. And thank you so much, Eric, for joining me today. And I'll let you know when this comes out.
Awesome. That sounds good. Thank you for having me. I appreciate
Okay.
it.